Hello.
A quick update.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Mary.
I'm going to show you Dr. Carter. This is one of my favorite things in my office that Marilee Burgesson. I think of you every day when I look at this. It says, I'm going to make everything around me beautiful. That will be my life. This is what I try to channel every day. Thank you, Marilee. I want you to know I love this. And this
Very nice.
I love
paper
it.
airplane too that you gave me with the heart. I keep it on there. Keep flying. Hi, Karen. Hi, Petamini.
Hi, Karen.
Nice to see everyone. I'll go ahead and get started. We have, I know we have a couple more people join in, so I'll just add them in as we go. But to stay on time, I will get everyone started. So thank you. Happy Wednesday to everyone. Thank you for joining us for our 39th Lunch and Learn. I can't believe it's been 39 weeks that we've been doing this. So we have a really special guest today, Dr. Jim Carter. Before we jump in, a couple of Zoom rules for everybody. If you are new to joining us, please mute yourself when you're not speaking. We recommend speaker view for presentation. Video sharing is optional, though we love to see all your smiling faces. And please type all questions and comments into the chat. Dr. Carter, or Jim, likes to engage you during his presentation. So please, we so encourage you to use the chat. We want to hear from you and your comments throughout the whole presentation. So please, we want to hear from you. A quick update from Autism Tree. We've now reached over 542,000 people through our social media channels. That includes Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, everything that you can imagine. We're doing it. This is an incredible reach. We've reached globally and nationwide. So thank you to everybody who has been following us on our social media channels during this time. We have now, our posts have been shared over 919 times, which is incredible. So thank you to everybody who's sharing our content. We do post videos daily and weekly on a weekly basis for our community to keep you connected. We have 338 videos on our HPF YouTube channel now. Please subscribe today if you haven't already. There's lots of great content on there for our kids and families and our supporters. It takes just 1 second to sign up. 289 of those videos have been posted since March 12th of last year. That's when COVID hit and shelter in place. This is one of the very first ways that we pivoted Autism Tree to stay connected to our children and families. So thank you so much to everyone, all of our program managers, volunteers, community partners who have submitted videos of activities for our kids and families to do at home. And we also started a Reading at Autism Tree series, Reading with Autism Tree videos where our volunteers read children's books to our kids and families. We have now posted 104 of those videos and reached over 44,000 people just through that playlist series. We have now also provided over 220 virtual events to date since last March and have 12 events coming up between now and the end of March, which I can't believe it's already been a year in COVID. So thanks to everyone for who made this possible to supporting Autism Tree and keeping us going and keeping us, helping us serve our community. We now offer 19 of our 20 programs. 18 of these are virtual and they happen on a weekly basis. We have 2 to 3 events a week. So there's lots to get involved in. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to let you know about what's going on in our community. So next I'll introduce our HPF co-founder and volunteer executive director, Dana Hoff, and she will introduce our special guest speaker today.
Hi, TPF family. Happy 39th week. Thank you, Rebecca, for the great recap. I just wanted to tell you how much I'm looking forward to sharing Dr. Jim Carter with you. And I want to stay on for a minute before I bring up the question. The question today is going to be about heart. And for those of you that don't know me really well, in running the foundation and starting the foundation, we're in our 17th year. I mainly I do use my heart intelligence every day with our team at Autism Tree and all of our volunteers. That is how we do it at Autism Tree. How do we do everything we do that Rebecca just covered? We foremost use our heart intelligence. How have we been getting through COVID-19? We've been counting our blessings, literally. And I just want to say that that is what is working. And there's not even one day that hasn't had many blessings. So if you aren't trying that, I would so recommend you to do it, because sometimes we can miss the blessings. Can you hear me, Rebecca? Okay, that we have in our life. I just wanted to share a personal thing that happened yesterday as an inspiration. Sometimes I don't know why things happen, but I'm hoping there's a reason that I'm sharing this with you. One of my friends that I haven't seen during COVID, who was actually in Todd and I's wedding, I saw yesterday. And it just kind of hit me. I was running late in the game of us getting together, and I took a moment and I just was on my heart to write her a card, especially because she was in our wedding, and just say, I can't believe I just celebrated my 27th Valentine's with Todd. And it seems like that not that long ago, to think back of you reading a poem with your husband at our wedding. And just that I cherish that she's always reaching out to me during COVID-19. So anyway, I had a really lovely time with her yesterday. And at the end, when she was leaving, she ended up telling me that she's been having just an incredible scary health scare, like your worst nightmare. So I think sometimes that the people who are going through the most in our lives that are right in front of us aren't always telling us. And she's been reaching out to me a lot during COVID, and I'm so glad I finally took a moment. And then also, before I even laid eyes on her, that I wrote her this card, because at the end I was just dumbfounded what she's been going through. And I just hope it inspires you in some way today. And it also ties, I think, to the question that I already had sent Rebecca over the weekend.
She's going to log back in. So in the meantime, I'm going to share our question of the day. And I encourage all of you to type your answer to the question in the chat. So the question of the day is, what does my heart say? And you can answer this depending on something that's going on in your life right now that you want to share about. What does your heart say about a decision moving forward in your life during this time? We want to hear from you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read some answers in the chat. All right. Oh, here's Dana joining us again. Wonderful. Thanks to everyone who's putting the answer to your question, to the question of the day, in the chat.
Okay, I'm sorry, you guys.
You're back.
Texas, but I lost power. That's never happened to me, Dr. Carter. I apologize. Okay, so did you already do the question, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Question, and people are typing their answers in the chat.
Okay, good. My answer to my heart, which is our leading source of how we make our decisions at Autism Tree, is just, my heart says constantly every day during shelter in place to breathe, just to breathe again. And I'd love to hear, I know, please type in after Rebecca, I'll read everybody's comment. And Dr. Carter, you know, I know when we even spoke with you, you were so much speaking from the heart. And that just really, since we don't know each other really well, it just meant so much. I was excited. I told my husband, oh, it was so cool. Dr. Carter told me he remembered meeting us at a core team meeting, and Garrett had just gotten his white Volt, and I just kind of was bolted over that you had that memory. And I'm sad because we don't have a lot of pictures of us with Dr. Carter, but it was a great memory that you shared, and I definitely felt a heart connection with you on our Zoom call getting ready for today. So with that, I picked out this video based on the discussions we had. It's about 3 minutes, and I hope you guys like it. It just kind of sets the tone for decision making. How are you making your decisions? We can all improve because we're all human. It's kind of a funky video, but I really liked it because I feel like there's many people right here on this Lunch and Learn that come every week that I know are examples, honestly, of the great choices that we make every day. If you're Facebook friends with John Hickey, I'm not sure if he's here today. He usually is. He's always posting where he's going bike riding. He's fitting it in every day. Many of you have an easier time. Sometimes I'm better at what I choose to put in my body or to listen to, or, who are you spending your time with when you do get together or you are influenced by someone, even if it's on Zoom. The choices we make have such an incredible impact on are we growing or not? Are we stuck or not? It just has everything to do with it. And Dr. Carter, when I saw that a video, it just reminded us on some of the things, it's one thing to make decisions that affect our individual selves. It's quite another to make decisions that affect our child and their future. And at Autism Tree, everything is all about creating brighter futures for the children and families that we're serving. We are living that every day. So I'd like to think it's even more important that we make correct decisions for ourselves so that we can be our healthiest version for the children and families that we care so so much about. And that brings me to the quote that I chose for you, Dr. Carter. Always make decisions that prioritize your inner peace. And I think if we're bringing in the best foods that we can to our body, both mentally and getting the physical exercise and sun, and just really being around positive influences in our life, it's going to help us make decisions and prioritize peace. So I'm very grateful specifically for the lunch and learns. I feel like we really do that. That was a picture of a Zoom call that we had to prepare for today. And with that, I just feel excited to introduce you all to Dr. Carter, because he inspired me to not only pick out all those things, but kind of commit that it's really, really important that we all prioritize the decisions we make, and do even each day go, you know what, maybe today I didn't nail it, but tomorrow I'm going to try to do better than I did today with eating or getting outside or what have you. So thank you, Dr. Carter, for inspiring me today to just honestly, personally make better choices, so that I can make better choices in the bigger picture of my life for other people too that we're serving. And thanks so much for making the time to be here.
Thank you, Dana.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, it looks like I'm the speaker now. All right, so greetings to everybody. It's a pleasure to see the faces I haven't seen before and meet people. And I have some slides that I'd like to share with you. So I'm gonna pull my slides up and then talk as I'm showing them to you, so that I can keep focused and hopefully have a cogent discussion here. I'm going to share the screen, so give me 1 second here. Okay, can I get a thumbs up? Can you see my screen? All right, awesome. So let me hit the play button. So what I had hoped to talk to you about today, and actually hopefully have a discussion about, is decision making. As Dana said, for me, and my experiences that I've had in terms of my involvement with the autism community, the decisions that I've had to make for myself and for my family have been very important, and I wanted to share a little bit about that. So first, let me just explain who I am. So my role today is I'm here as a participant. I was a participant in the ATPF Parent Mentorship Program back in 2017, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in my story. And since then, I've been a supporter. So I've gone to the neuroscience conference. I have attended several of these lunch and learns, and supported in other ways. I would also say that, as Dana and Stephanie has introduced me, I am a clinical psychologist, so I can't not be that. So for the last 21 years, I've been a licensed psychologist, and I've also have a background in training in clinical research, which I'll explain a little bit about maybe if we have time, but that's not my role today. My role today, just to clarify, is I'm here as a parent, and I want to share a little bit about my experiences, and hopefully that will be helpful for other people as well. So I wanted to start by saying these are some aspirational goals, and these goals are goals that I have today as a presenter, as someone who's facilitating this discussion, and they came from my contact and my interaction with the ATPF community. So based upon the previous talks I've seen, this is what I've gotten. This is a community in my mind of first and foremost, these types of values: loving kindness, gratitude, generosity, acceptance, respect, inclusion, etc. I'm not going to read them all, but for people who are on the phone and maybe can't see, that's where I want to start. And this is a slide to remind me to thank everyone who's contributed to this. So I wanted to thank Dana for inviting me. And by the way, I volunteered. I reached out to them and said, hey, I'd love to share some of my experiences. And they said yes. But I want to thank her and all the staff at ATPF for all the work that they do, the mission. It's been very impactful for me. And these are the kinds of things of how it's impacted me. So very positive things. I also want to thank Stephanie and a couple of the speakers that came before me. One of them was Tracy Shepler. Tracy was the person who referred me to the parent mentorship program. She was a psychologist who was working with my family. And so that's how I kind of came into the ATPF community. And Dana also asked me to take a look at Rich Horner's presentation as a fellow father. And I did, and it was very inspiring, and it helped to clarify some things in my mind. So I wanted to personally thank Rich for his presentation. So this is kind of what I had hoped to do, was talk about decisions from this point of view, is how do we use our own values, clarify those values in terms of helping us to make good decisions, and what other resources are there? There's evidence out there. We all want to be, quote, evidence-based, but I want to kind of talk a little bit about different kinds of evidence and other resources we can utilize, because some of the decisions that I had to make as a parent were challenging decisions. So I'm not talking today about decisions like, should you wear a seatbelt in the car? I would say it's a pretty easy decision. Yeah, I think nowadays we all wear our seatbelts. At least that's how my family is. And I think the research says most families wear seatbelts. However, 30, 40 years ago, when I was a kid in the 70s, that wasn't the case. So some of these things that we kind of take for granted in terms of what's an easy decision or hard decision changes. And maybe some of the decisions that I went through that were challenging for me, maybe 20 years from now, they're going to be easy decisions for other parents and families. At least that's my hope. And so these were the areas that really were challenging decisions for me. And I have this quote up here by, I think it's attributed to Shakespeare, although no one really knows where the quote came from. It says, "Heavy is the head that wears the crown." And what I think that means to me is that sometimes making these decisions really comes with a lot of responsibility, and because you're impacting other people's lives. In this case, my child's life, our whole family, and so this is what happened for us. Give a quick kind of background. My son had some medical issues from the word go. In utero, he had some what are called PVCs, which is irregular heartbeats. We can see that when he was born, it was a challenging birthing process. He had trouble latching, so we had trouble with feeding. And as a parent, you have to make a lot of decisions. What do you want to try to do? How do you want to deal with these things that don't go the way you planned? And I think that's just kind of how parenting goes. And it's everyone's doing the best we can, and we're all trying to make good decisions. And that's what happened. And I'll never forget from that point until my son was 4 years and 11 months old. We had to make a lot of decisions about medical stuff and stuff, but by and large, they were fairly easy decisions. We had some choices, and we made our best choice. At that point, when he was 4 years, 11 months old, he got sick. He got really sick.
The line that went out, I should probably send it up to Norman then.
Can you hear me or no?
We could still
Hello?
keep going on, Jim. We could still hear you.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing that happened was my son's cheeks turned bright red, and he had some sort of like allergic reaction. Within a couple hours, he was vomiting. Within a couple more hours, he was having diarrhea. And then there was a week, 8 days, 10 days, I don't know, it's all a blur. He wouldn't eat. So he was really sick, and he had trouble with his GI system in the past. So we reached out to our GI doctor, and she gave us some medicine. And I don't know what happened after that, but all of a sudden things really changed. He became aggressive. He became upset. He couldn't sleep. It was like a totally different kid. It was overwhelming. So we were kind of thrown into this experience of what's going on. And for us, it started out as biomedical. So that was my kind of introduction into this community. So fast forward from there, 3 months later, roughly, we had got in to see our doctors and had a formal diagnosis of autism. And and so from that point forward, there was a sense of urgency as a parent, like, what can we do to support him? Because he's going to be starting kindergarten in about 4 months, 6 months, something like that. And he had been in daycare, been doing great, learning his colors, his shapes, his alphabet. And all of a sudden, now every letter he wrote was switched around. It was like a mirror was in his brain. So every letter that had a direction. So if it was an L, it wasn't this direction, it was now this direction. R was not this direction, R was this, everything was backwards. And he was getting ready to start school. So all of a sudden we had to decide, what do we do? What evaluations does he need? What interventions does he need to support him? And how do we go about doing that? So we had a lot of difficult choices, and it was very overwhelming. And so based upon that experience, I think not only did we kind of get through it, and by the way, he's doing great. I think personally, I grew a lot as an individual. It made me kind of recognize and clarify a lot of things in my life, my values. So there's a lot of personal growth in terms of being a father and just a human being. So I want to start by kind of having a little bit of a discussion about this whole idea of biomedical supports. And I'm going to ask a question to the group, to everyone. So without knowing too much about this, I'm curious, we can do a show of hands or a chat. Would you be willing to personally enroll in a clinical trial, or if you're a parent, maybe your child, enroll your child in a clinical trial in a study that's going to look at the impact of balovaptan on social interaction? So this is a real drug being potentially brought to market by Roche Pharmaceuticals, and it's not something I know a lot about. I don't know a lot about this drug. I specifically chose something I didn't know about because that's not really what I want to talk about today. I just want to know gut reaction based upon this idea that there's this drug, balovaptan. It's supposed to somehow modulate oxytocin, which is a hormone that helps us bond with other people. Would you be interested in it? Yes, no, or maybe? So please send your response to Stephanie. What's your reaction? And Stephanie, please let me know when or excuse me, Rebecca, I'm so sorry. Rebecca, please let me know when we get some responses.
That's okay. Yeah. We have some people that are saying maybe. I personally would say maybe. It depends as well. Anybody else want to answer in the chat, and I will give our answers to Jim. Okay, we've got 3 maybes, 1 yes, but with more background. I think that's a good, in general, most everybody.
Okay, so we have a group that's pretty open to biomedical. This shows you that this talk was not scripted. Because the first answer that I wanted to go through was anyone who said no, because if someone flat out said no, I wouldn't even consider it. My guess is that it has not to do with evidence or information. That decision has more to do with their values. There are some people who would say, or that have said to me, I've spoken to other parents and people who said, I'm not interested in that because, number one, I don't believe I should take any medicine to change who I am. I am who I am, and I want to accept that. I want to be myself. I want to be my authentic self. And what I would say is, I completely respect that. And what I'm thinking of is that this is really not a decision. And when you talk to that person about the medicine, they don't really care about any other information because they've already made up their mind. This is a personal value for them. They don't want to do this, or they don't feel like they should. Even asking the question is not really on their radar. And so I want to say that personally, my value is kind of more in the middle. Yes, it depends because of the how we came into the autism community. I had a strong feeling that biomedical issues were related to our situation. So if we were to look more at values, though, we would talk a little bit about what are values. People say, oh, the person has good values or strong values. but we really oftentimes don't talk about what value are you really meaning. And so values are at lots of different levels. They're in our communities based upon our culture, the groups that we associate with, the experiences we had. It's also related to our religions, our families, generation. I know my values are slightly different than my parents. I think my sons will probably be different than mine in some ways. And then we have personal values. And if anyone's interested, there's a great set of materials. It's by Bill Miller and his colleagues. It's called the Value Sort Test, where you can look at, here are values that you may want to talk about and discuss that you have in common with or that are different from other people. And there's 80 some of them that he has, and it's attached as a PDF if anyone wants to look at this and talk more. Some of these values line up nicely, and some of them are seemingly opposing. So for example, what the community values, let's say, for example, in a birthday party, there's an example, what the community might value is, there's an unwritten rule, and in some cases in schools, there's a written rule. If you invite one kid in the class, you invite them all. You can't just invite one or two kids to a birthday party. That's not allowed in a lot of communities. And that's a value that's important to recognize and to honor that. But that might be in contrast to the child's value. So I can tell you, after having, I think, 2 birthday parties where my son burst into tears when we brought the cake, it became very clear to me that, hey, this is not a party for him. This has to do with us or the communities. And we needed to change that. We need to find a balance in different ways. So his last birthday party, there were 3 kids. There was no candles. There was no cakes. There was no singing. He had a great time. And so it was a matter of kind of changing that whole process to fit with what he wanted. He didn't want these things. So sometimes we have to learn how to balance or change our values depending on what's going on. The other thing I wanted to say before I moved on was when I watched Rich's video, Rich Horner was talking about his experience and his interaction with the biomedical community. I don't want to talk about him. If you're interested, you can watch it. But what really struck me and clarified for me was that my own personal reaction was, if I'm really honest, I was very frustrated. It became very clear that my values were not necessarily the same as some of the medical providers I was working with. My sense was that once my son had this diagnosis of autism, it was kind of like, okay, well, he's having some real serious GI issues with his gut, with his digestion of food. He's having trouble with sleep. He's having trouble with, his mood and stuff. Well, that's autism. And it was kind of the answer that some of the medical community gave me. So, well, geez, 70, 80% of kids with autism have GI problems or have trouble with sleep. And say, okay, that's fine. But I really wanted what I valued was exploring things at a level that would lead to something that was helpful for him. I didn't just want an answer. I didn't want this sense of, okay, this is what it is. I wanted to know, did I lose my screen there? Did you guys lose?
Yes, it got blank a little bit.
Sorry about that. Hopefully it'll come back. Is it back yet?
Not yet. I'm going to stop sharing your screen and then you can try it one more time.
Okay, give me 1 second. I apologize.
Today is the day for tech problems, apparently. Thanks, everyone, for understanding.
It always happens, right? It always happens.
Yeah, there we go. It's back.
There we go. My apologies. Apparently, Adobe wanted me to update something. That was my experience. My experience was a tremendous amount of frustration, and I had a sense of urgency because what I saw was over a period of several months, things that my son used to be able to do, he couldn't do anymore. He had regression. And I was really scared that if we didn't do something to stop that process or reverse the underlying issue, things were going to get worse. And I think they were. So the doctors were saying, like, hey, time is on your side. Let's look at this again in a year or two. And I'm thinking, we are having a real discrepancy here in our values because I want to look further. And I will say that those conversations were absolutely critical because it did lead to us to find other kinds of things that I think were more helpful for him. Had I just kind of stopped and said, okay, enough's enough, I don't think we would have made the gains that we've made in terms of his health and his well-being. So those are some of my values about this in terms of the biomedical stuff. But now let's talk about evidence. So for those of you who said, maybe it depends, what was it that you would want to know about this study or about this medicine, this drug, belvaptan? So please unmute yourself and share. What would you want to know?
Okay.
And this is hypothetical. You don't have to.
You can type it in the chat. Oh, here we go.
Maybe the side effects of the medications or probable, downturns for it.
Okay, excellent. So you'd want to know what am I getting myself into? When I take this medicine, how am I going to feel? How's it going to affect me? Is there some particular side effects that would be important to you?
Drowsiness, how it affects your brain chemistry in terms of, how calm you may be, if it heightens anxiety, how it may affect maybe other mental issues such as depression.
Okay.
Multiple variables, and just wanting to know more information about how the drug behaves.
Excellent questions. Excellent things that you'd want information about. How it's going to impact me. What I'm putting something in my body. What does it do? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Essentially, how it would affect the brain chemistry.
How is it going to affect my brain chemistry? You obviously, I mean, myself too, value your brain chemistry. That's what I would want to know. What's going to, and not just the short term, but maybe the long term.
Exactly.
That's to me, that's something with a drug that I always want to know. Like, hey, what's going to happen to me a year from now or 2 years from now if I use this? Yeah, excellent. What else? Any other?
I saw a message in the chat that also said whether or not insurance would cover it.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's a good question.
Thanks, Ben. Yeah, Esther, thank you for typing in the chat. She said the treatment should not be worse than the treatment. Does the insurance cover it as well?
Okay. So excellent. So I think we're on the same page here in our thinking in terms of how to make decisions about these kinds of things, whether or not it's worth some of the risks. So here I pulled up a slide that shows types of evidence. So a lot of times some of my work, I said I'd maybe get into some of my work, is I started out in research. So when I first graduated from graduate school, my first job was at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. I worked there in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, and I worked for a small research group called Behavioral Pharmacology Research Unit. And we did studies that would be along this continuum here, that everything from animals to human research labs to pilot studies, randomized controlled studies, and effectiveness. So I have had some interaction with a lot of these types of studies. And what I wanted to say was that, for example, what would the side effects be? That was one of the questions. Well, we would be able to know the side effects once we did probably a pilot study or an open trial. For sure, once we got to the point of doing a randomized clinical trial and lots of people were enrolled in the study, we would probably, after a couple hundred or maybe a few thousand, we'd have a pretty good sense of what the potential side effects might be. However, with just a single case study with one person, we wouldn't know, because we're as human beings, we're all so different. You really need to have large numbers of people in these studies. And so as a parent, I was overwhelmed coming into the prospect of thinking, what can we do to try to help my son? Because medicines that are FDA approved for helping individuals with autism, and those are risperidone and Abilify. So they're medicines that are even rarely used. They are, but not so much. So what do we look at instead? Well, what I'm going to suggest is that all of these types of evidence have their place. They all can be helpful for us in some ways. none of this evidence is kind of good or bad, but it's important to understand what the difference is. So way on the left side here, I put rumor and conjecture. You know, if someone's got an incomplete picture of something and they want to share that with you, it's not, we don't want to rely on that, but you know what? We all pay attention to rumors. We all pay attention to hearing about things. And kind of close along that is the reputation. How popular is a medicine or an approach or a strategy? Because there's something about that that might be valuable to us. On the other hand, you know, when I was a kid, smoking cigarettes was popular. So it doesn't mean it's necessarily healthy. Sometimes things in our society and culture is popularized, even though it's not good for us. Testimonials is a really important thing for me to talk about, because it's not just about client testimonials. It's not just people saying, hey, I took this medicine or I did this biofeedback intervention. It really helped me or it helped my son or daughter. It's actually doctors who do this too. So you'll see sometimes doctors are going to be giving testimonials about something, and you have to just realize that's what it is. It's their view, but it's a single view on this stuff. And so what I have here, it says, for these kinds of type of evidence, we really need to consider the source of the evidence. Is there some sort of conflict of interest? So if someone says, you know, taking these supplements has been the most dramatic thing for my clients I've ever seen, and then you find out, oh, by the way, I have part owner in this supplement company and I profit from it. There's an incentive there for this. So and this is, I think, unfortunately, it is quite common from my experience. This is what I learned, is that a lot of the information that's shared is sometimes there are motives there that for us to be aware of. And so I don't want to disregard it, but be careful of it, and also be careful of, you know, what's called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is the more someone really knows something about. When we go to the neuroscience conference with ATPF and you listen to the world's greatest experts on these topics, they don't get up there and stand there and say, take this medicine, it's the greatest, it's the best, everyone should take it. What they say is, well, it depends, right? Some people, in some cases, this and that, it's a decision, because they know so much about this topic. They're very cautious about how they explain things to us and what kind of advice they give. So be careful of when someone's really giving a really strong you know, testimonial about something. The other thing is the randomized controlled trial here, way on the right side, that is considered the gold standard in the field of research in terms of whether or not something is helpful for us, not just for medicines, but also just for, even for kind of psychotherapies for us. So when you look at the evidence of ABA, is it helpful? It's really, we're looking at randomized controlled trials. The type of research I did the most was I call post-clinical trials. So you have something that is efficacious, something that works in a controlled trial, but can you make it work in the real world? And I can tell you that if you have a medicine that's great, but it tastes awful, and you have to give it to a kid 4 times a day, and it costs $1,200 a month, it won't work in the real world. People can't afford it, they can't do it. So it's not just about whether it would work. So the other question someone had about is, does your insurance cover it? Yeah, that's absolutely critical. And again, it's something that I think is important for us to think about, is making more treatments that are evidence-based available for more people. So anyone who wants to read more about biomedical treatments, one of the pearls of wisdom, one of the kind of things I found I want to share with everyone, was a review article by Dr. Jim Adams at Arizona State. He wrote a summary of types of biomedical interventions. And I read this about 2 years after I had started. And I said, where was this article when I was, you know, thrown into this arena and trying to figure this all out? I would have loved to have seen this. According to Dr. Adams, what's the most common type of biomedical intervention for persons with autism? Does anyone know? Dietary. So the number one intervention is people's diet and vitamins and stuff like that. So my own personal, no longer entertain an intervention unless there's we at least get to this yellow part here, a case study. So I'd love to see randomized controlled trials for things that I'm willing to try, but sometimes they're not available yet when you're looking at cutting edge stuff. But so for example, I give my son a vitamin, and some of the vitamins that are in this multivitamin are methylated, which means they're partially broken down and metabolized. And part of the reason I do give him this particular vitamin that I give him is because there was a randomized controlled study that looked at the effectiveness of this vitamin. So I find this just to be a helpful rubric in terms of making decisions about these kinds of things. Let's see here.
Hey, Jim, we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if we're going to get to the other stuff, and that's okay. I told Rebecca I think I have way too many slides, but here's another thing I want to share with everyone. If I'm not sure, and it doesn't matter if it's biomedical or if it's a therapy decision or anything else, one question I've learned to ask, and this is not just for my child, but for myself, whenever I'm interacting with my doctor, is I asked this question. I've heard it before, but I'll say it to everyone to really consider using this. What are the risks? What are the benefits? And what are the alternatives? And I cannot tell you how many times when I've asked that question, the doctor has, after briefly discussing it, has completely changed their recommendation either to myself or to my son. The other thing I think is helpful is to, if I'm going to do something, is I sit down and I argue against this decision. Now, this will drive my wife nuts. Because we'll talk about doing something and we'll make a plan. Okay, let's do this. And then the next day I wake up and say, let's talk about why not to do it. And she's so confused. I thought you said we were going to do this. I said, yeah, but before we do it, let's think about why we wouldn't want to do it, because that's been a useful strategy for me too. Some of the things that happen in school, I'm going to fast forward here through this. I'll cut right to the chase. The year my son started school, the district had a $24 million budget cut, which was over 10% of their budget, and $240 million budget cut, excuse me. And $50 million of that cut was to special ed services. So all the support staff, all the kind of people behind the scenes that make things work in the educational system, they were cut. I mean, it was gone. And the same year that happened, the unions, which represented the behavioral staff, they finally won their again, something that they were shooting for, which was preventing services to come in from the outside. So when my son started school, all the internal services were cut. And then we said, well, that's okay. We have our own ABA therapist. She would love to come to school and help set up a BIP. And the school said, you can't do that. It's not allowed anymore. Last year you could have done that. This year you can't. So we had a lot of tough decisions to make in terms of schools. And I think a lot of parents do. I think a lot of parents can relate to this, how hard it is. Do you move forward with an advocate? Once you move forward with an advocate, that changes the dynamic, your relationship with the school, and they treat you differently. How about a lawyer? Once you get a lawyer involved, wow, now it's really, things are different. We're not having friendly conversations anymore. We're having legal discussions. And so I guess what I've learned is the evidence that's most important to me is to look at my son's response. Is he happy? Is he coming home happy when I pick him up from school? Is he happy when I drop him off? If those two things are not there, I get really worried about his school. And that's number one to me is am I putting him into a situation that he's going to be okay with? Because those are my values, that education should be enriching and positive and encouraging. I don't want his education to be something that he, quote, gets through. We also look at things like test scores. And from the time we started this 4 years ago to now, when he went into the first grade, this is an anecdote, but he was 1 year behind in his reading because kindergarten was very challenging for him. It was a very, very difficult year. So the next year when they tested him for reading, he was in kindergarten level reading. Fast forward this now, he's in third grade. They tested him this year. Now he's in fifth grade reading level. So 6 grades in reading level in 3 years. And I attribute that completely to a different school, different approach, and different ways of interacting with him, because he's not going to learn if he's in a situation where he's struggling so much. So so now I say, okay, I said testimonial is one type of evidence for biomedical. We can think about it. I don't want to weight it too heavily. Now it's a whole new thing. Now I'm looking at testimonials from other parents and from children and say, this is a great school. It's a great class. It really was positive. Now I'm thinking this evidence weighs a lot more heavily in my decision. So it's just a matter of kind of trying to determine which evidence is most important for which types of decisions you're making. So I hope that this makes sense. Maybe we should end with one more question, just out of curiosity. Oops, how do I go back? Here we go. So for support services, and what I'm saying is anything like behavior therapy, ABA, or CBT, or any of those. Here's a question again, I'll post to the group. If you can only afford one, meaning time or money, which one would you pick? Would you pick some sort of one-on-one therapy to improve an area? Would you pick something like music, dance, or art therapy? Or would you pick something that's maybe not even like a structured therapy, such as participating in a club for gaming or movies or something like that? Which one would you pick? And in the interest of time, I know we're running out of time. If it's okay, I'd say go ahead and unmute your.
I would pick an area of therapy to improve an area of life.
You would?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because he gets all the others. He's in a arts school, so he gets the music, the dance, he gets gaming and club, he has all that. But I would like to improve like specific areas, communication in his life, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an easy decision for you, and partly because maybe the benefit in that area would carry over into other areas too, if he's able to communicate more effectively and have better communication, then maybe it would improve other things like his art and so forth. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Another parent typed in a group activity.
A group activity.
And another person said, I think this could look different at different points in time.
Yeah, great point. Great point. It really would depend, wouldn't it? It's going to change. It's always changing. That's one thing that's for sure. I can say that we've explored so many different things, and all of them have been helpful at some point. My son has done music therapy, he's done art therapy, he's done occupational therapy, adapted physical education in school. He's had speech therapy, he's had one-on-one behavior therapy, he's had group therapy for social skills group. He's had a lot of informal activities like playing games with other kids. And I think every one of those experiences has been enriching and positive in some ways. He's done equine therapy, and it just goes on. And so I would just encourage any parent that take a chance with any of these things, because the only way you're going to know that what's really going to work is just give them a try. And if you're not satisfied with one, like for example, behavior therapy, I've had just tremendous experiences, and I'm so thankful and so grateful for all the wonderful help and support that our family has received. And I'll also tell you that there's been times where I've picked up the phone and called the agency and said, that person's not welcome back in my house. So it was not a good fit. It was not a right for us and our family. And certainly I would encourage any parent who finds that something's not working, and it's, people say like, well, I feel like it should be working better. If it's not, it's not. Be honest with yourself, be genuine, and either try to fix it or pick something else. There's just so many things out there that to choose from. Yeah. So I think maybe we would kind of stop there, and I'm going to wrap up real quickly and say that
I stopped sharing your screen, Jim.
Okay.
So we're going to open it up to Q&A. We have a couple of minutes. Jim, thank you so much for this presentation. Was amazing. And thank you for sharing being so open and honest about your story as a parent and, the struggles of the challenging decisions that you had to make for your son. I think a lot of those resonate with so many of our parents. And a lot of the parents, call me and say, they want an easy answer. What do you think is best? And it really comes down to, being open to everything and then doing your research and, analyzing those self values, which you touched on so beautifully. And I just thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. I think it's going to benefit our community a lot. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that.
And anybody, if you have any questions for Jim, we have a couple. Okay, great. One question. Jim, are you familiar with neurofeedback therapy, I assume?
Okay, so as a parent, we're on the wait list for neurofeedback, so I'm familiar with what it's supposed to do. I don't have personal experience using it. I don't have personal experience with my son, and it's not an area in my professional work that I've had much experience with, but I'm curious, since someone brought it up, how about you? Do you or other people have experience with neurofeedback? It sounds really interesting and something we want to explore.
If anyone wants, they can unmute themselves too.
I wanted to say two things. Yes, we have people in our community that have done literally everything, including biofeedback. Our parent mentor event that we do, we always pair people with whatever they want to be looking at for their child. And we're blessed. After 17 years, we pretty much can cover anything. And I also wanted to say what a blessing it is to have Ben Kozner on here and have you so interactive. Ben, if you take 1 second to introduce yourself, I just want to say how thrilled I am that you're coming on as an official intern. Will you tell everybody just a couple things about yourself, and thank you for being so interactive today.
Hello, my name is Ben Kozner. I'm a junior at Poway High. I'm 17 years old. And some of you may know my sister. Her name is Gabby. She does a lot of events at Autism Tree and does a lot of artwork at the organization for the organization. And during COVID, I wanted to lend a helping hand in an area that I think would really impact both my community, me, and my family, and the organization ultimately. And Autism Tree was definitely my #1 pick for that because they and all of you guys have really helped my sister out. And every single time she comes home from one of these events, she's smiling and she's radically happy about everything that happened. And yeah, I just wanted to give back to the organization.
Thank you, Ben. I'm counting you as a blessing today and your family. And I'm not just saying that. I really like having you on here. I see you as a young CEO. That's how you come across.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, we're at just about time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have any other questions for Jim, you can email them to me or type them in the chat right now. I will include Jim's full presentation. He also sent me a couple resources that I will include in the follow-up email. And Jim, if you're okay with it, I can include your email as well in the follow-up.
I'll give you a good email to reach me at. I don't know which one you have, so I'll make sure you get the right one.
Perfect. So if you have questions, please reach out to us. And I think we're all good to go. I'd love to take a group picture of everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for being on today and being so interactive with Dr. Carter.
Yes, this is wonderful.
Would you like me to take the picture?
It's been really great.
I've got the picture, Ben.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Okay. Everybody smile, turn on their cameras. Look at the camera and I'll do a countdown. 1, 2, 3. Cheese. Perfect. I got it.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Jim. And have a happy Wednesday, everyone, and a great week. We hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.